Building trust in the medical community, particularly for Black, Indigenous, and people of color. That's what a massive project headquartered at Fred Hutch is working on.
Yeah, the work brings more diversity to clinical trials, and they're already seeing major improvements. KIRO 7's Dee Sun sits down with doctors spearheading this charge for change.
I'm just trying to get used to it.
We're more than 2 long years into the COVID-19 pandemic.
What do? You just have to, it's the new normal.
Health has been part of our everyday conversation more than ever before.
Do you feel like there's more trust or less trust in the medical community?
A lot of mistrust.
I think there's more trust.
I asked the same question to these two doctors.
Would you say that today there's more trust by people of color in the medical community than there was 2 years ago?
I would argue that we have a long way to go.
Dr. Stefan Wallace and Dr. Michelle Andrasic have been working long before the pandemic to improve trust, but their work took off in a big way when COVID hit. They point out fixing trust isn't about changing something with people of color.
I'm really hoping that we can turn that mirror around and say, what can we do? What do we need to do to be trustworthy?
To give you an indicator of trust levels, take a look at this study, co-authored by Dr. Andrasic. It shows how underrepresented the BIPOC community is in clinical trials. The study looked at data from hundreds of trials over 9 years and found white people make up most participants, about 78%.
It sort of reaffirmed what I already thought was true and made it even clearer that what we're doing is critical.
The work they're doing now is dramatically changing those numbers. She and Dr. Wallace are part of another study with the COVID-19 Prevention Network, or CoVPN.
Work from the COVID-19 Prevention Network and teams here at Fred Hutch show with robust community engagement, it is possible to have meaningful diversity in vaccine trials.
At CoVPN sites across the U.S., recruiting for multiple COVID vaccine trials, 47% of participants were BIPOC, including the Phase 3 Moderna trial.
It's completely possible and totally attainable.
It took an incredible amount of work, bringing in faith-based groups, integrating language and culture into outreach, and working with organizations that have long-standing, trusting relationships.
It has to be incorporated from the very beginning. This was an unprecedented level of transparency in the process. It's not about having people who look like me to simply say, Black people need to be involved. It's what the culture is that's being injected into the process.
The reason why diversity is so critical, it's not just about making sure the new medicine or whatever is being tested works for all people.
Participation in clinical trials is not only about the end product, but what that participation means to the individual and their communities.
A goal just as important is changing the relationship the medical community has with communities of color, leading to better health outcomes for everyone.
Feeling as though what is happening in healthcare involves you and involves your community.
For KIRO 7, I'm Dee Sun.